When queers, lesbians, gays, bis, trans people go for substance use care, frequently our substance use is tied in with our sex lives. Even those things that we may not use in that way are probably linked into some cultural aspects of our community. So if you need to get substance use help, and now to help yourself make a change, you have to either not go to the place that your community gathers, or that you are now changing your sex life, those things require very open conversations about your coming out. And so it helps queers to go to spaces where there are other lesbian, gay, bi, and trans people who are providing the services, so that you actually have open conversations about your whole life in a way that lets you figure out how you're gonna make changes.
When working with anyone within LGBTQ2S communities, specifically queer men, there is already sort of a higher risk of certain experiences, right? Just based on identity alone. So, we have understood and know that there are, classic facts out there around, increased risk of addiction or problematic substance use, increased risk of bullying, experiences of homophobia, increased risks of suicidal ideation or physical harm attempts. So already, unfortunately, based on your position in a vulnerable community, you're at a higher risk for these experiences.
We want to validate experience. That's the first step. We want to be compassionate, we want to hold space. Sure, there are negative aspects to meth, but we also want to engage in a conversation openly about it and not shame somebody right off the get-go for using meth, so that we can talk about the harms and we can talk about how we can navigate those harms and provide strategies for them.
There's a few things that, as care providers, we want to be looking out for. We want to look out for psychosis, because we want to look out for the possibility that it's impacting their ability to tell reality from non-reality. We want to make sure that their sexual health needs are being met, right? Like when people are high and using, they end up having sex for longer amounts of time, they might take more risks. So we just want to make sure that that they're getting STI screenings regularly, that they are taking care of themselves physically, that they're making sure to, people will go without eating for a long time, without brushing their teeth for a long time. So, do people have some amount of routine that keeps them physically healthy? And then finally, when you have a whole group of guys that are getting together to use in PnP, there can be situations where somebody takes advantage of another person who's not completely in their right mind at the time. And so talking about sexual assault and asking guys about whether they've had any situations where they felt like they didn't provide consent, and helping them process and think about that is, I think, also really critical. And it may be something we don't think about off the top of our minds when we're focused on the physical health things, is to remember that it's important to raise issues about sexual violence and to ask people if there's been any consequences like that.
The other important question to ask guys is like what coping looks like, right? Like, how do you cope with fear or anxiety or stress in general? I think it's also helpful to understand what is someone's current sort of living situation, right? Are they securely housed? Do they have a support system? Because that's a protective factor. If that is removed and or becomes vulnerable, that is going to dictate there's more vulnerability, there is more risk in your support relationship with that guy, right?
I use the words before them. So instead of asking them, how do you use your drug? I say, do you smoke it? Do you slam? Do you booty bump? Just put it out there. Talk about sex. Talk about orgies. Talk about masturbating online. Talk about injecting. You have to say those words. It calms people right away, and they're automatically hearing okay, this person is a safe person for me to talk that I'm injecting drugs.
Fundamentally, we also have to be changing the box that we work within, because as long as we continue to say drugs are bad and people shouldn't be doing them, it's going to create stigma, and stigma really is the number one barrier to people being open and honest and being healthy. So be very mindful of your own values and attitudes around this, and try to set that aside to build that relationship so people can open up and start talking openly about what's happening.